people interested in yoga have this kind of look, like this almost a deeper energy, if that makes any sense. Teaching yoga is such an intimate, immediate experience, like being in a yoga class and being present, similar to being on stage and performing for people and helping them feel better. Well, that's what I think I loved the very first time I stepped into a yoga class, is that there was no mirrors in the Jivamukti studio. So we weren't like looking at ourselves in the mirror. When I was a kid growing up taking dance class, it was all about the external validation when you looked in the mirror, and if your feet weren't here perfectly in your turnout, or, it was very kind of judgmental, I think, in the dance world. The human element is so important in our lives and making connections. Somatic exercises they're more about working in, and they're not done for a result, just the pure joy or discovery of getting to know yourself better. So I would say movement, movement, movement. I think movement is medicine. It's less about touching your toes and what you learn on the way down.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's like we're not doing it so that we can touch our toes. We're doing it so that we can learn.
Kristin, cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so pumped. I guess I'll do the actual
Oh, yes, we have to.
sip. Wow, I actually forget the cultural norms, isn't it? Like in Europe, you have to look each other in the eye.
Oh, is that it? So we
cheers and then
look,
I've never thought this much about it.
And then we're good to go.
But I'm nervous. I want to make sure this conversation goes as well as possible.
That's our well wishes. Like
exactly,
that's our good luck
exactly.
charm.
So I got to do it right. Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm so pumped to chat with you today about
Thank you.
a bunch of different things. I have a feeling, listeners, if you're hearing Kristin and her story for the first time today, I have a feeling that people are going to remember the first time that they got to hear you and your story, because I feel like it is, for many, they might already know, but I have a feeling that this next decade is going to be a really big one for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's true. For listeners that might not know much about you or your background, do you mind giving a little brief history in your own words on your background?
A little trajectory to
Before
how I
we
got
jump
to
in.
this
Yeah.
place here and now. I grew up in a small town in Idaho. I went to University of California, Irvine, and then transferred to New York University. There I discovered yoga, fell in love with it. This is in the 90s, before yoga was really like a cool thing to do.
What was do you remember the first time you heard about yoga?
I remember my very first class even. It was at Jivamukti. They were on 2nd Avenue above this little Holy Basil restaurant, and it was just like magic when I walked in and took my first class. I had never experienced anything like that. And it almost felt like I was coming home, like, oh, this is what I've always needed, or what I'm missing in my life.
What was like, did someone invite you? Well, just out of curiosity, because this is before yoga was.
Before yoga was, exactly.
Yeah.
So Nikki Costello was her name. Now she's this really esteemed Iyengar teacher, and she was a year ahead of me in acting school at Stella Adler at Tisch School of the Arts. So she was coming in, and she actually was my very first introduction. She came in before our classes and said, hey, does anyone want to do some yoga with me? And so she was leading us in yoga just because she wanted to start teaching herself. And then I said right away, where are you going? How do I do more of this? And she told me Jivamukti. So I started going there all the time after every one of my classes. And then I just certified to teach when I graduated. And I was doing that to support my acting career instead of waiting tables. I mean, I still was like scooping ice cream at Ben & Jerry's and walking dogs, but I was also trying to teach a lot of yoga classes. And it just kept coming, like I kept getting more and more work. And I did the first MTV Yoga DVD in 2003, which is funny. That's how we were talking about the Steve Martin connection.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I started working with Steve Martin, because I came to Los Angeles to do an LA Yoga Expo. And one of his teachers here said, hey, I've got clients in New York. Would you see them when they're there? And the next thing you know, Steve Martin called me, and I was like, oh, he did not tell me that his client was Steve Martin.
Cool. Yeah.
So that was cool. And then from there, I just kept on kind of following this trend. I went from like DVDs to then doing kind of YouTube and HSN, and then finally reached out to Peloton in 2018 and asked if they wanted to do yoga on their platform.
And they did in a big way.
Yes.
It is, and it's also part of the reason that it's so cool to get to chat with you in person, because I'm so used to you behind a screen.
Oh, I love that.
And your voice in my head. And it's I want to dive into a handful of the things that you just touched on before a few other topics that I'm interested in chatting with you on. But real quick, and you mentioned Steve Martin, and it's kind of an in some ways unexpected individual that I wouldn't think of would be really into yoga. But then I think about him as an individual that was like the top comedian in the world, then top actor, phenomenal musician, you hear nothing but amazing things about him as a human as well. His book, Born Standing Up, is awesome.
So
Isn't it such a good read? Amazing read. It's actually a phrase that I think about a lot in building companies is be so good they can't ignore you.
Mm-hmm.
To where it's like you want to get in any door, deserve to get in that door. If you want to have people love your product or your company, deserve that love. And Mark Andreessen, the famous venture capitalist, always says that phrase. And it's from Steve Martin in his book, Be So Good They Can't Ignore You.
Yeah.
And when he was talking about breaking into comedy, and he was like, it's not who you know, you just have to be so good they can't ignore you.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that train of thought was going through my head. I was thinking, is there something you notice about individuals that have their antenna up and say, oh, I want to try yoga or go into yoga deeply, that seems to strike a pattern of their personalities or who they are as individuals versus just kind of conventional strength training or weight training or,
I think that's a very good question. And also just I was looking at like the brightness in your eyes. Like you have this amazing brightness in your eyes. And I think of my students or people interested in yoga have this kind of look, like this almost a deeper energy, if that makes any sense. And I often think of yoga as like working in as opposed to working out. And so it takes the person who wants to actually kind of go deeper and go inside of themselves and not be afraid to do that and do some of that work. Not that you ever have to go into the spiritual parts of the yoga practice, but yoga is much more of a practice than a workout. It's a philosophy, it's a way of living, it's a way of breathing and doing things and staying mindful. And so I think it takes that kind of person who's like, I really love the way this is not only making me feel on the mat, but off the mat. And I think a lot of other type of workouts do that for you in general, but I think yoga has this next kind of layer to it.
Well, that's very kind of you. And maybe you're just saying that to be nice.
No,
but
it's true.
That's a really cool contrast because I love strength training, endurance training, but I also in the last 2 years, 3 years have loved yoga specifically because of, and that's a cool contrast of like a work in versus a workout.
Right.
And that's what I kind of feel like when I'm going to do it and I'm like, I need to just like take a pause from work things. And also I think about like, okay, someone told me once that there's over 600 muscles in the body and yoga helps activate nearly all of them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Versus going on a run might only activate a subset or certainly, strength training is only going to activate a subset of them in many scenarios. So whenever I'm going to yoga, I'm like, no, I get to work out the whole system.
Yes.
Mind as well. But so it is a different, it's like, I don't think about it as like I'm going to do anything for the external. It's like I need to just maintain the internal.
Yes.
Versus when I'm weight training, I'm like, all right, I want to
want to rep it out. I want to get 5
pounds of muscle or
exactly.
something. Yeah. But okay, so
but one other thing going back to the Steve Martin thing is I look at him as a comedian and an actor and a musician, but if you look at a lot of his comedy, he's got that physical kind of slapstick nature, and he's talented, even mover. And so I do think it's a lot of people who are also really aware of their body and able to put their body in different positions. And so it's like looking at his comedy, he's definitely always had a physical aspect to his comedy. And music's a very physical endeavor. We were even talking to Chris, who helped us here. He was like saying, when I'm jamming out, I get sweaty. I feel like it's a workout. So,
well, we'll talk about somatics here in a little bit because it's one of the things that you have started to really beat the drum on is somatic exercises and that connection, that deeper connection that is there and free and for any of us to tap into. So, and before we jump into that, I do want to cover a few of the things that you mentioned within yoga and with especially starting to dip your toes into it before it was cool. What have you noticed an arc of yoga within our culture, and where would you say 2025 is in that arc? Because I can't tell. Living in LA, on the west side of LA, it's like it's everywhere, but I can't tell. Is that because I just live here? Is it growing internationally, like it seemed to be before we moved to LA 5 years ago. And is there a growing interest? Is there a plateau?
That's a good question. I see right now that Pilates seems to really be trending. And when I first certified for my yoga, I started teaching yoga in the gyms, mainly at Crunch. And I was asked to teach Pilates classes or to sub them. And so I thought, I better certify in Pilates as well so I can do the both. And I love them both. They're different modalities, but I think they're both great. And they're actually kind of complementary to each other. Although Pilates is all about core strength, and Joseph Pilates created his method he called Controlology. And then they just named it after him. But he was more about using your powerhouse or your core section to move, to initiate all your movements from. So I think with yoga, it's always going to be a mainstay because of what we were talking about earlier, it being more of a practice and it's a working in, and it's really a way for people to connect to their minds and their bodies and focus on their breathing. What I'm noticing more and more is that this hot yoga is becoming very popular, which has never been my favorite style of yoga. I've always taught that we generate our own heat through the breath and the movement. But I'm noticing right now hot yoga is kind of trending, at least for where I'm at.
How come? Why do you think?
I don't know. I'm wondering if it's that I do see that just these different, even like with sauna, red light, cold plunge, all of these other ways of enhancing your workout and your recovery is also on the rise. So I'm thinking maybe people feel like if they're in the heat and they're really sweaty and that they're getting a really big workout or it's enhancing their yoga practice. For me, I find that people overstretch and it can sometimes be dangerous because you've got so much heat that you're just thinking, I can go into these poses, as opposed to not really knowing how much you've generated your own heat. I think anything that opens the door to getting people into the yoga practice is always great. I find I would love to start going more into the direction of the somatics, like working in like what is this doing for you and how can you get to know your body better. And then if you did take a hot yoga class, you would notice if you were actually overstretching or pushing yourself too hard, know when to back off. And I think also more functional, well-rounded training. And when you mentioned yoga, how we do get so many areas of the body, there's a lot of pressing in yoga. There's not a lot of pull. And so I noticed yogis kind of hurting their rotator cuffs after a while because they're doing so many chaturangas where they're rounded forward. And so that oppositional like pulling is great. And so I think it's good to have a little bit of strength or have the strength in your body so that when you go to do your yoga, you can focus on the practice and the breath and less on holding yourself up, because it's hard in the beginning, like getting all those muscles really strong.
If someone's just hearing about these for the first time, I would love to get a breakdown of the different modalities, even the ones that you just mentioned, the ones that are your favorites, and the breakdown, and maybe even the history of them a little bit, because I had never heard the history of Pilates.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
I didn't even know. My wife takes me to Pilates, her Pilates classes on Wednesday, and I do love it. I love it. I've been going just for like 6 months. Mat.
Okay, mat. Okay.
And I love it. It's so much harder than it sounds. Like a mat and hearing Pilates, I just didn't think it was going to be as hard. It is so hard.
Exactly.
And we go to Dominate here in Santa Monica, and it's Santa Monica, Venice. I guess it's technically in Venice, and it is so much harder than I thought. It is. We've only been doing it for the last like 6 months.
Okay.
Awesome, but I didn't even know that it was like a core focused type of. I mean, I'm just trying to survive.
When you're there, do you notice how much
I do
it's
notice
okay?
it, but I'm just trying to survive. I'm just like, where am I? And can I make it through this? But yeah, do you mind giving a breakdown of the different modalities? And then I would love to know from you, what would be your favorite weaving of modalities
kind of like a
together?
week. Yes,
like a favorite week, and how you approach.
I mean, yoga has been around 5,000 years, and it's a practice and a philosophy and has so many different layers to it. The word yoga just means to yoke or to unite. So the physical, the hatha yoga that we do is uniting our minds and our bodies through the breath using asanas or postures. And there's, over 300 different postures or asanas that you can do. There's different forms of yoga. There's the Bikram yoga. He started the hot yoga. There's Ashtanga yoga, which was started by Patabi Joyce, and it is a set vinyasa flow. Vinyasa is the flow style yoga. Then you have the power yoga. You have yin yoga, which is much more.
I've seen your posts on yin yoga, which is so
yin
great.
Is amazing.
And no one ever talks. Okay, can you spend some time breaking down all of these?
Yin is about the connective tissue. And so instead of heating up your body and working on opening up space in the muscles. It's about opening up space in your joints. So you'll go into a pose and hold it for 3 minutes, and then you'll do the other side. Or if it's just one single pose, like child's pose, you'll just stay there for 3 minutes until your body and your nervous system really relaxes. So you're getting into the parasympathetic nervous system, and then you're working on the connective tissue in your joints and letting that area soften and relax, which is pretty cool. And it's wild. After you're in a yin class, you're like, oh, I feel so good.
What's going on when you feel good inside?
I think it's that your body, your nervous system kind of finally deregulates or just lets go. Kind of like a restorative yoga class, but in restorative, you're holding yourself up with props. The props support you, and so you can really let go. In yin, you still have to use a little bit of your own energy to be in the posture, but then it's like you just kind of sink into your joints in a different way, or kind of release your joints in a different way.
Okay, we'll add that into the
yes, you can
ideal
add that into the mix. It's so hard. And then Joseph Pilates came around in the 1900s. He was working with prisoner of war veterans, and he had a background. He was actually a sickly child, and then so he started doing all this different physical fitness. He was in a circus. He was a boxer. When he started working with these prisoner of war veterans, he realized that they couldn't actually sit up. So if you look at some of his equipment, it almost looks like a hospital bed. Or like he created the reformer, which is really cool, so you can work against the springs. But he calls the mat the kind of Cadillac of all classes, or Pilates, because it's the hardest, I think. You have to use your entire body to do the hundreds and the roll up and all of the different exercises. He has a set, like it's so fucking hard. Yeah. And he has like a set, if you follow classical Pilates, there's a set sequence for the beginner, then the intermediate, then the advanced. A lot of people now have done more contemporary Pilates. They mix things in. They start doing other, exercises and stuff. But it all came from Joseph Pilates, who I think was way ahead of his time. Super cool. So the Pilates being that I think in yoga, a lot of times students will come in and they're not as conscious of their core or using their core throughout the entire practice. So a week for me, I usually like to strength train maybe 2 or 3 times a week if I'm good. And then my yoga practice I fit in probably pretty regularly. It's like one of those things where I'll just wake up and do a few sun salutations or down dogs. If I can take a longer yoga class, like an hour, or take an hour of practice, again, that's maybe twice a week. And same with Pilates, maybe twice a week.
Okay, so twice a week on which kind of yoga is
my personal favorite is vinyasa. I do like the flow. It's very much like swimming on land. It's like choreography. You kind of move from one pose to the next.
And that's different from restorative and different from all I've done really is flow. So that's different from restorative and different from yin yoga.
Yes. And yin or restorative are nice to do, I think, on a recovery day. So say, Mondays and Wednesdays I'm doing yoga, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I'm strength training. Like Friday I might do Pilates, Saturday a restorative class, and then Sunday another Pilates. That's just kind of loosely something like that.
So something each day.
Yeah.
I have a mentor of mine that said, and I was completely neglecting my body for all my 20s. I was building companies and just never really paying attention to strength. I had a trainer for a little bit, but it was like out of need. I was like, I need some accountability, but I never fell into a rhythm where I like looked forward to it until I started to go to classes here in Venice for yoga. It's the first time, I guess I really started to like running. It just really just fell in love with how I felt afterwards years ago. But then 2-3 years ago, it was the first time that I fell into love with a class of some sort. And it was a yoga class at Open Studios here in Venice. And I fell in love with the fact that I was working at everything. Like I could just notice, say the first 3 weeks, I was like, what are these poses? I don't know what's going on. I'm terrible. It's somewhat embarrassing, but I love taking on new things every few years that make me feel like a beginner and just destroy the ego, keep me humble. And so yoga was that about 3 years ago. And I loved, within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just like my grip strength was better.
Yes.
My balance, I could feel that like my feet could handle me at different angles that I could have never supported myself with before. And I was like, man, if that's doing that to my hands and to my feet, who knows what it's doing to the rest of of the body. And with little kids, you really need every little muscle for the way you're picking them up and putting them in car seats. So that was the beginning. And then I started to then love going to gym sessions. Then and the younger me would laugh at how much that I love this. But all of this entire like rhythm that I found myself in goes back to a mentor of mine saying, man, you've been neglecting your body in a major way. And, in a few years, this was a few years ago, you'll be 40 and it's going to start to catch up with you in a big way. After he said that, I pulled out my back twice in like a 6-month span, and puts you out for like a week when you pull out your back. And really, really tough. I missed Christmas one year because I pulled out my back the day we were going to go to or the day before we were going to go to the airport. And I was like, I'll just stay home and then I'll make it, on the 24th. And couldn't move, couldn't even get up to like go downstairs. It was really, really tough. So then he says this, that happens to me. I see it catching up to me. And he said, I really think you should spend 4 hours on your body a day.
Wow.
Just as a mental exercise to break from this idea that like, 20 minutes is fine. Because I was like, I'll go for 15-minute runs, 20-minute runs, but that's it. And I don't know if I've ever spent 4 hours, but it certainly like broke through some glass wall of how much time to spend to where now I'll walk for an hour, do an hour class, and try to spend about 1 to 2 hours a day minimum on
being physical
on the body. Yeah.
So I love that you are incorporating yoga as well with your running, because I'm similar to you where I like to like see what I can do next. I was always a yogi and a Pilates person, but I've cardio kind of like if I'm skiing or I'm playing tennis, that's one thing, but I was never a runner. And I ran my first marathon in 2024.
Yeah.
And it was a similar thing where I had to like, and there are days when you're spending 3 hours out there running. And I was like, I never thought I could run more than 10 minutes, to chase the bus or the subway or whatever. Right. But it's so wild to see what your body is capable of doing. And I used a lot of that same somatic because I knew that I had to finish injury-free because I was still teaching on camera and I'm a single mom. And I the main thing is like I didn't want to injure myself training for a marathon, and I wanted to finish it. So it was great when you have that kind of yoga.
It's kind of a narrow threading of a needle.
Right? Like the working in, because then I never ran with music, which people think I'm insane, but then I could actually kind of feel where my feet were, what was going on, what my body was telling me the whole time. And I would just use mantras in my head to keep me going.
What were some of the mantras?
A lot of them, silly ones, like I'm a runner, I am strong, I could do this all day long. Like I would just get myself like in this zone of like, I could, a lot of
Where did you even have the wisdom to pick up a mantra like that? I'm a runner, I am strong.
I could do this all day long. Isn't that? And I'd be like, I'm a runner, I'm fine, I'll make it to the finish line. Like I just kept making up stuff in my head because there would be moments when I was like, okay, I don't know if I can go another step. Like one step at a time. That's always a good one. Forward is a pace. Like as long as you're moving forward, even because I had to stop a few times in London and just walk, as long as you're still moving forward, though, that's it. You're fine. You don't have to compare yourself to others. Stay in your own lane. It was a good learning lesson for me.
Where did you have the intuition to even try no music, and then to have a mantra?
I think the music thing was almost easier for me. I don't know if it's kind of a silly thing, to be honest. I don't like to have a lot of stuff on me. So like having to deal with the earbuds
finding playlists
and sticking, where am I going to put, I don't know. Isn't that silly? Like I should start being more of one of those people, but like the wearables, I never really tracked exactly what was going on or what. I would just listen. I would time it because I knew I'd have to do like my 13 miles this weekend and then but I wasn't I wanted to just be more in the moment and less worrying about, I think, all the data. Next time around, if I ever did it again, maybe I'll go do the exact opposite. Get some good music to pump me up, get a Garmin or a Whoop or something, or a ring that's going to tell me my pace and all of that stuff, which would be cool. But
that's as a wellness expert and in this entire space, that's cool that you're even like flexible. Usually you hear people like, no, I don't do that.
They're one way or the other.
Yeah. No, I don't do any of that. No, this is how I do it. But that's actually unexpected that you flipped it and you're like, and maybe next time I'll do the
Maybe I
exact
should try
opposite.
it and see what happens. It might help me. You know?
Okay, just as a whenever we interview people for jobs at Magicmind, I always ask them, tell me a story before the age of 18 that has helped shape who you've become. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling you have some really cool foundational experiences to have given you this intuition on many different levels, and to be right on yoga, to be right on a handful. I think somatic exercises is like the next big thing as well, and to be right on Pilates. Tell me about your childhood as a slight segue.
Okay, I have some really cool parents. They met and eloped when they were 19 in a musical. So I came from a musical theater family. My dad plays the piano and sings. My mom loves to sing and perform. So when we moved back to Pocatello, Idaho, where my dad was born and raised, he noticed there wasn't really much happening for theater or arts in this town. So he and my mom created a performing group. I think that's probably what helped me this whole time, like really just think outside the box. And if it's not there, create it. Like with Peloton, like they didn't have yoga, but why not? Let's see if they open up to doing yoga. So my parents started, my dad's name is Craig C. McGee. He calls himself KC McGee. So KC and the Sunshine Kids. Me, my older brother, my younger brother, a bunch of other kids that started auditioning, and they just kept growing and growing. Next thing you know, we had like 35 Sunshine Kids. We had a choreographer. We were performing at the World's Fairs. We were performing, like we were going all over. It was really cool. And so I think a lot of that helped me. First of all, I love being immediate in the moment and present with people. And so when we'd even go to, say, like old folks' homes, or I don't know what we call them nowadays, but that's, more like assisted living, right? Mm-hmm. And we would sing for people in their later stages of life. I remember my dad's a doctor. He's an ear, nose, and throat doctor, but he had a patient on hospice. And so he brought just a few of us. Your
dad's a doctor, and he did the KC
and the Sunshine Kids.
Wow,
yes,
cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
Isn't that cool? He's ear, nose, and throat doctor, so it kind of goes along with the whole singing. But I remember there was this woman, and he said, "Why don't we bring a few Sunshine Kids to her?" Like, fine. I mean, it almost makes me want to cry, but I just think like the human element is so important in our lives, and making connections. And so I feel like that's always kind of shaped what I like to do. I like to meet people. I like to connect with people. I like to share with people. And yoga, teaching yoga is such an intimate, immediate experience, like being in a yoga class and being present, similar to being on stage and performing for people and helping them feel better. And that's what I originally went to NYU for, was theater, and that's how I discovered yoga. So I think just having my parents doing all of those really cool things for us when we were growing up I never had like one huge pivotal moment, I would say, before 18, but.
Man, that's so cool that it sounds like you had really special parents. Even that insight of performing and leading and teaching and doing all of that for the service of it, of what that can.
They want people to feel good
in an assisted living scenario like that,
right,
or any scenario. It reminds me of about 2 years ago. I was telling my wife this a few months ago, that a few years ago I was growing up. I had an inclination to perform.
You did too?
I loved.
You grew up in Texas?
But only just for fun. In class, I was class clown. Yeah, I grew up in Dallas. Class clown, was voted class second funniest, so not funniest. My best friend Clark was voted class funniest. I'll be real there. I was not voted class funniest, but then I was voted best to have a class with, and always warmed my heart that people thought I was fun to have a class with.
Yeah. And
I always felt like it was attention seeking. You'd get that, feedback a lot if you were a class clown, like seeking attention and vain. And then 2 years ago, I was taking our oldest daughter, who was 5 at the time, to a birthday, and it said on the little ballet sign, performing arts for Center for Children. And it hit me for the first time. I was like, this is an art form.
Yes.
And it can be a service. And I had never thought, I didn't grow up in a artistic family, artistic setting, never grew up in performing kind of community anyway. But I was like, oh, this is she is so wired for it when she was 3 years old.
Is.
Maybe you've had this experience, but kids that have like our own children almost re-educate ourselves on ourselves.
True.
And I saw when she was like 3 in the back of our car on a drive, she said, Mommy, will you pull a crowd for me? We like looked at each other, we're like, pull a crowd? Where did she get this phrase, much less the desire to pull a crowd? And she's just looking out the window wanting to be in front of a crowd, but it wasn't vain. It was just pure like, oh, I like it when I'm able to do this for people. And she is a performer. So I'm dropping her off and I see performing arts. I'm like, oh, it can be as unselfish as wanting to paint a picture or write a poem. So that is really fascinating that you saw that at an early age, that performing is and can be a gift.
A gift to so many, yes.
To so many. And obviously you add in yoga instruction, and it's even more so of a gift to people than a typical kind of non-participatory performance medium. But it really, for any listeners out there that have that, I don't know, inclination to want to perform, find the communities that could really use that.
Yes, and, true.
Assisted living centers could use any and
really
all
use that. Yes.
art forms or instruction. Do you do any of that now with
Well, I would
yoga,
love to start doing more of the chair yoga with elderly population, because I wrote that book on chair yoga, and I feel like once they do get into a place where they're in an assisted living home, or even just when they're older and they don't have as much people around or communication, and being able to continue to move their body is so great. And then also the younger generation. So I do Mindful Mondays with my 6th graders class, and yoga classes in the gym with the 2nd graders. My twins are 2nd grade. And I noticed this mindfulness training for kids these days is very important, because they have, well, I didn't have growing up.
Yeah, we tell listeners about what you're seeing.
Constant pull of attention with devices. We didn't have any of that growing up. So now I see kids having this draw of all this external, social media and the iPads. And I try my best to actually try not to give it too much focus. I found that when I grew up, when my parents gave me really strict limitations, I almost wanted it more, and they didn't give me too many strict limitations. So I never really felt like I had to break any rules. So with my boys, I want it to be where they have so many other cool options that's their last option. And then if they want to do it for a little bit, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. But for kids to have this chance to learn how to self-soothe and to connect with themselves and to make eye contact with each other and find their breath, it's very important.
I had no idea that was a trend that was growing until my daughter at 6 saying that they were learning those kinds of things. Okay, so do you mind walking me through the progression from yoga and then Pilates and then somatic exercises? Do you mind explaining somatic exercises?
Okay.
What they are, how you first came across them, and the importance within our daily lives.
So soma just means of the body, and somatic exercises are very similar to what we were talking about earlier with yoga. They're more about working in, and they're not done for a result. So it's the pure joy or discovery of getting to know yourself better. And it can be through physical exercise. It can also be through breath work, through even postural exercises. Alexander technique is really cool. I was doing Alexander technique in my...
What is Alexander technique?
Alexander technique is where, so he wants people to feel like they have to use less muscular energy to just be. Almost like if you imagine that your shoulders are just a coat, like you're a coat hanger, and you, instead of having to use all your muscles to get yourself up out of a chair, you just learn how to gently, effortlessly stand up. And because he lost his voice, he was an actor, and he lost his voice. He kept losing his voice on stage. And he couldn't understand why. He kept losing his voice every time he'd go to perform. And then he realized it was all postural and the way he was holding himself, and then it would catch there. So
I've heard that for every inch your head is forward, it's like an extra 35 pounds.
Oh, pounds.
I'm making this up. I don't remember the exact
weight
numbers,
on your...
Yeah, weight on your neck because of just think about it, holding something up straight versus at an angle, you need far more strength to hold it up. So
and there's so much forward head syndrome these days. I often talk about like head over heart over hips, just to kind of check in throughout the day. So there's progressive relaxation techniques. There's meditation falls into somatic exercises. There's somatic therapy as well, which I'm not trained in at all, but it's where then you work with the trained therapist to talk about whatever's being unlocked in your body, or why am I holding tension in my shoulders? Why am I losing my voice when I go to speak? Because so much of it is maybe a physical component, but there's also other things behind that. Maybe there's trauma from the past, or maybe there's emotional, something attached emotionally as well. Like I talk about when we're in forward folds in yoga, a lot of times people might cry because the back tends to hold our memories. And so anything stored in the past, if it comes up, can sometimes bring you to tears. Or people who are afraid to go into the back bending, sometimes it's like they don't want the anxiety of going forward in their lives, moving into the future. So it's really cool to look at all of that. So like the Eastern Hemisphere in yoga, we talk about the front body, and that's going forward into your future. So when you do like a big, huge back bend, and kids have no fear doing that, it seems. But as we get older and as adults, we kind of get a little more
because we want to
closed off, and
we
maybe
feel
we're
too
afraid
exposed when
and
we're
anxious, maybe vulnerable to go forward.
It's interesting. Whenever I do like upward dogs, for a while I was like, "What's the point of this? Let's get." And I didn't. And I've had
That's
lower
funny.
back pain.
What's the point of this?
Yeah, I was like, that's not stretching it.
Comfortable?
And I feel like maybe it was tied to I'm so used to doing everything that I should be going forward.
Oh, interesting.
And bending backward. And any stretch going forward is going to help me go forward.
Okay.
But bending back, I think it helped relieve my lower back tightness in a big way, which is counterintuitive. I would have just thought, no, bending forward would stretch it out. And then realizing there's so much more going on, and actually doing, upward dog for people that aren't, that are just listening and don't know. It's like laying down on the ground, putting your palms down, and really stretching your shoulders back towards your
chest. Yes.
Yes, upper chest and shoulders back to the instructor. What would you say?
No, that's exactly what you said. And your thighs are off the floor, so the tops of the feet are pressing down. You're actually using your body weight to lift your chest. And so it's intense. And
a really interesting, different kind of back bend that you'd see and that you'd ever do in daily life. But it's so relieving.
It really is.
For lower back pain.
And somatics, anything could be somatic in nature. I think it's just the intention you put behind it. So even what I was talking about when I was training for the marathon, it became a very somatic form of working in as I was working out. Yes, there's the result of wanting to finish the marathon, but it wasn't like I was going out to run to set a pace or to lift a certain amount of weights. Like even strength training could be somatic if you're doing it because you're really getting to know yourself and build this strength from within, as opposed to like putting an external result on it, doing it for an external outcome. Now, not to say that you might not have some great outcomes, but that's not the main reason you're doing it.
Have you noticed? I'll ask you more about somatics in a second, because I think it's there's a reason that you decided to write the book for somatic exercise for dummies, and how I want to talk about the slight nuances that are under-discussed and different from just yoga or Pilates. But what you just said there on goals and goal setting and not being an external, is much more of an inward or internal perspective. Does your line of work over the last 30 years, has it shown you a healthier version of goals and maybe an unhealthy version of goals, just along those lines of external result? Maybe it's just something that you did intuitively, but I noticed how you almost emphasized there was no external reason to do it.
Well, that's what I think I loved the very first time I stepped into a yoga class, is that there was no mirrors in the Jivamukti studio. So we weren't like looking at ourselves in the mirror. When I was a kid growing up taking dance class, it was all about the external validation when you looked in the mirror, and if your feet weren't here perfectly in your turnout, or it was very kind of judgmental, I think, in the dance world. Not judgmental, but very competitive as well. And then yoga, there was like no competition. You were just in there to move, and you get into a room of yogis and everyone's moving together, but you're not really comparing yourself to the person next to you on the mat. Hopefully, at least back in the old, that's what I think I liked back then, was there, it seemed much more community based and less of the competition, and more about these spaces that people could come and discover themselves better, and then also connect with others better. Where now it's a little tough when there are classes with mirrors, or when people, I think that's why Y7, is that the one that's trending in New York? They decided to make it dark. So it's dark in the room and you can't really see the other yogis, and they turn on the beat of the music. So it's very beat driven and you kind of get into your own zone. I would like to see my students, because I like to give them hands-on adjustments, but there is this an element, I think, of coming back to working in, and that's why I think everyone keeps asking me, like, can you teach somatic yoga? I'm like, well, it's actually already somatic. Like, when you're doing a yoga class or practice, you're already working inwards. You're already seeing what's going on with your hips and breathing through the discomfort if that feels comfortable, or backing off if it's too painful. But when there's, I think when you see the mirrors, or when you're trying to make a perfect pose, that's when it
and
takes
there's
away
like an
from
arms race to have the coolest, hippest, newest uniform,
and clothes,
it's not that brand anymore. Now it's this brand.
Became like so commercial
and like very provocative. Of like, I mean, I saw, this isn't even this isn't hyperbolic. Literally, yoga pants. It wasn't in the class. It was just someone walking down the street. That had just the straight up like contrast colors of a thong design on the outside of the pants. And I'm just like, whoa. And that might have been just like a fashion statement, but at a class, like it would be like, okay, I kind of want to do this inner work, not to have the distraction of a million like visual, just biological cues. I would kind of want to go inward.
Right?
So yeah, I imagine has that been strange to see over the last few decades?
That is strange, and also the performance of social media, because you can see people doing these amazing postures, and it's beautiful, but it's less about the posture and more, like we always say, it's less about touching your toes and what you learn on the way down. That's what's the somatic part of.
Say that. Do you mind saying that again?
It's less about touching your toes and what you learn on the way down.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's like we're not doing it so that we can touch our toes. We're doing it so that we can learn a good alignment to lengthen out of our lower back. How do we engage our core? How do we use our breath? How do we start to move in that direction? And what are we learning along the way? So people feel like they can't do yoga because I can't touch my toes. And I'm like, no, it's like saying I can't brush my teeth because I've got food stuck in them, right? It's like, that's why you brush your teeth, so that we can figure out how to work towards that.
God, I was under, that's why I neglected the body, because I was like, that's just not my field.
Yeah.
I'm going to just be all head.
Oh, dang it.
And heart, but certainly not like, if there's a union between head, heart, and body, I was like, body, I'll do that
That's
after.
the last thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And good Lord, did things start to change when I started to reverse that.
Mm-hmm.
Just with running to begin with, but then cold plunging and surfing and.
Oh, I love you do all of that.
Yeah.
Do you ever can you talk about what happened with your heart?
Sure. It's
was that more
listeners
recent you discovered?
May have heard this before. No, this was 12 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
13 years ago. When I was 26, I developed a heart condition from drinking 6 to 7 cups of coffee a day.
Oh, no.
It was the genesis of Magic Mind. It sent me to the ER with atrial fibrillation, and my doctor went to the doctor's office first and ran through the test. He was like, yeah, you have a condition called, it's an irregular heartbeat.
Okay.
You have a condition called atrial fibrillation. And do you drink? And I was like, no, not really. Do you drink caffeine? I was like, yes, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, do you find yourself under high stress? And I was like, yes, a lot. And he was like, well, those two are related. Caffeine is spiking your body's cortisol, body's stress hormone. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't know it was related. In fact, I would drink a coffee thinking like that's going to help me get rid of these tasks that I need to do that are stressing me out, not knowing that an hour later, 2 hours later, it would lead to more stress, even if I completed the task or got to inbox 0. And so he said, with your condition, you really can't have more than 80 milligrams of caffeine a day. And I was like, was that? I knew nothing. I was so scientifically illiterate at the time. I was like, is that 2 cups, 3 cups? He was like, no, that's about half a cup of coffee. And I was like, there is no way. company
To
with
drop from 6
50
to-
something employees, 15 meetings a day,
Yeah.
20 to-do lists. I was like, there's just no way I can get through the day on half a cup of coffee. So this is like the beginning of Magic Mind. He said, your heart has been beating at it seems like 175 beats a minute for the last 3 weeks. If you're saying you felt this butterflies in your stomach for the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go across the street to the ER right after this, and we're going to we have to shock your heart back into rhythm with those like paddles from the movies.
Crazy.
And so that all happened, but I didn't care about any of that. All I kept thinking about was him saying,
the coffee.
You can't have more than half a cup. I was like, true addict. And then he said, have you ever tried green tea? It has this compound in it called L-theanine that decreases or it will extend your body's absorption of caffeine over a longer period of time, and it will help limit the cortisol response that's happening, the stress response that's happening when you drink it. And I was like, wait, L-thea stuff, wait, what? I can add something to the 80 milligrams. This is way before anyone was talking about this stuff.
Yeah, you were way ahead of the game.
And my engineering brain just went crazy down the rabbit hole of what can I add to the 80 milligrams of caffeine, that half a cup of coffee to make it last all day. And then fast forward 7-8 years later, had this little morning stack that everybody's buying all of the ingredients on Amazon and this little Google Doc that I'd share. And then I was like, all right, I'll maybe put this into a small little project and put a little brand around it and see where it goes. But the long story short, it was definitely neglect of the body and having no idea that so many different things nature and science give us so much more than just caffeine for that boost in the morning, for you to power through, certainly for endurance for the day. Endurance is not going to be found in caffeine. Like cordyceps mushrooms, great for endurance. Obviously, exercise, phenomenal for endurance, for mood, for anti-inflammation.
I want to hear more about the cognizant. Because I've been loving, like I noticed, especially with, I think, brain fog for me, because it's funny, like I kind of have the body taken care of. And the spiritual, I meditate every morning. I do 2 20-minute twice a day meditation practices. Awesome. And then I do all my exercise like that. I love to work out. I love to move. But I notice, especially now as I'm getting older and then having the 3 boys that I'm always managing all their different schedules, it was interesting, that shift when I started taking Magic Mind, of how much easier it was for me to have these moments of focus. Where in the past, it was like I'd walk into the kitchen, I'd walk around the counter, and I'd walk out, and I'd be like, what was I just doing? And I noticed this difference when I'm steady, when I'm religious about taking it. But I read this whole study on how kids' brains, for kids who eat 2 eggs a day, their brains develop. Have you heard about this study? How much?
Choline.
And it's the choline. And I didn't realize the cognizant was... Like, what is it? Like a super dense version of choline? That's cool. You need to let people know about this.
Yes, yeah. So my favorite ingredients.
So I should have my boys be taking this.
So yeah, and that's why we developed Magic Mind
without
gummies.
The caffeine. Oh, the gummy. Oh my
gummies.
Gosh, I can't wait to try those.
It's for I have so many friends that love the gummies, but also it's for kids. And there's no caffeine in there.
That's awesome.
Specifically for them. And it's been very cool to see just families, and we market it through our emails, but we should market it more publicly, that it's developed for any children 8 years or above.
Okay.
But my favorite ingredients in Magic Mind, and real quick before I talk about them, what was your first experience taking Magic Mind, and what have you noticed?
I can't remember how I first tried it, because I think I was somewhere that they had some samples. And I was like, whoa, I just loved, I love the packaging, because I resonate with those colors. Like the color palette's so pretty, and like green's always been my favorite color. And then I liked that there was so much in it in a little 2-ounce shot. You know, I'm like, this is easy, this is doable. It's not like I have to drink a big green juice every morning.
Buy 12 things and keep on track of what's,
exactly. And then I think the taste is great. I mean, I feel like it's just like, this is refreshing. It's light. I love it. And for me, I'm not I like my 1 cup of coffee, but that's about all I can handle, because I can't handle too much caffeine. But I have definitely noticed with you, like the L-theanine, I'm just the only problem with I always want the benefits of the green tea, but I don't like to drink green tea. So I like that I can just drink Magic Mind and not have to get so many cups of green tea in my day.
Yeah, totally. It's like...
or same with matcha. I wish I was better at making the whole... matcha in the morning,
it's such a process.
But it's such a process, and I just don't have the time
People
or energy.
do it for like 3 weeks, and then
I wish I could. They can't stick with it. Like, this is an easy habit to stick with.
What did you notice? And then we'll be done with the
Okay.
little commercial. But yeah, I always want to know. I always love hearing what people notice from it because it is so different than like what people typically think of in an energy drink or energy shot of like Red Bull. They're like, I'm going to get wired, amped up, or a jolt. But what did you? And instead of like, no.
This is like a nice, calm, steady state that you feel good, and you still feel good, like you were saying, to your point, hours later. It's not like that, I love that initial I used to love that initial cup of coffee in the morning and get that boom. But then, to your point, like maybe an hour later, now I need something else. And you don't feel that way when you're drinking Magic Mind. You don't feel like you need to keep reaching for something. Even like, interesting enough, like even like sugar cravings. Like, I don't feel like I need something sweet now. Which is weird. I don't know what is in it that's helping with that.
Decreases impulsivity.
Okay.
One of the things that people can do, it's really cool.
I would have never, that's so cool.
Yeah, so one of the things that people can do, it's that way you get it just objectively from all of the decades of research on these ingredients, is they can just ask ChatGPT or any AI client, tell me the ingredients in Magic Mind. Tell me why they're so great for me in the course of a day. And one of them will be around choline and cognizin, which is, it took us years to get cognizin because there's such a long wait list to get this form of choline. It's a patented technique that they use to make it more bioavailable than just typical choline sources, even eggs. And choline is amazing. But yeah, you can just ask ChatGPT, like, why is this so good for energy throughout the day? Why is this so good for decreasing stress? Why are these ingredients so good for neuroprotection? To where
that's good to know too.
It can protect synaptic connections as we age.
Wow.
Why is it so good for decreasing sugar cravings? There's so many things that I was 7.5, almost 8 years of research just for myself of just what is the best.
And you were the guinea pig.
Yeah,
you were
guinea
the one
pig.
taking
So
it
it's
every...
like, right. So this is the
and
longest.
I love the ashwagandha. I feel like that's always so nice and.
It's so great for decreasing stress.
It's so good.
And it's I was just at a little end of year preschool party for our 4-year-old and telling this parent that they were like, man, I felt so dialed in. What is it in there that makes me feel so dialed in? And it's a few different things, but the ashwagandha decreases stress.
Okay.
It's a natural, it's called an adaptogenic herb, an anxiolytic herb. So decreases stress and the leading cause of procrastination. And then I will shut up on all of this TMI on the product. But the leading cause of procrastination within the science that's been established in the last few years, it's not motivation, it's not energy, it's not fatigue, it's low-grade pervasive anxiety and stress.
Interesting.
So it's not, I need another cup of coffee for more energy to get through my next tasks. It's actually this low-grade pervasive stress and anxiety of like, I don't even want to look at my inbox. I don't even want to start on that 3-hour task. I don't want to look at my to-do list. But if you can get rid of that low-grade pervasive anxiety and stress, which we all have in the modern world we live in, if you can get rid of it, your to-do list melts away. Your inbox just gets to zero. That long thing that you're working on, you're just like, no, I'm just going to finish this. Part of that is that the adaptogenic, anxiolytic angle of something like ashwagandha. The other thing is my other, so choline I'll touch on, but then bacopa is one of my other favorite ingredients.
Oh, bacopa, okay.
Bacopa monnieri, also known as brahmi, an Indian herb that decreases impulsivity.
Oh, so cool.
And so it really helps us. It can decrease impulsivity by up to 60%.
Okay.
And the bacosides in bacopa help just limit this this feeling we all have of like, I know I should be finishing this task, but I want to reach for social media. I want to text friends. But with a Magic Mind, you're like, no. Or with any source of bacopa, as long as it's really high quality bacopa, like, no, I'm gonna finish what I'm doing. Or I don't want to reach for that snack. Bacopa can also limit blood glucose response.
Oh, that's good.
And so you don't feel like this huge shock to the system after lunch. Yeah. It really is like these. That's why I tell people just go ask ChatGPT about these different ingredients so that you don't hear about it from us. Cordyceps also helps with ATP production. So caffeine doesn't give the body any energy. Our fuel currency in the body is ATP. And I cover this in the book that I wrote Beyond Coffee years ago before starting Magic Mind.
I need to read that.
I'll send you. I'll give you a copy right after this. But yeah, the body. the body's fuel currency is ATP. It's this chemical called ATP. And to produce more ATP, something like cordyceps mushrooms will produce more ATP. Creatine will produce more ATP. Exercise creates more ATP, especially leg strength training will create more ATP. Drinking coffee, caffeine doesn't do anything for ATP, for the body's fuel currency. What it does is it turns off the body's, think of it like it turns off the check engine light. It will block your adenosine receptors from telling you you're building fatigue, but it actually doesn't give you the energy we think that it does. It just turns off the signals that we're building fatigue. Then those wear off and you come crashing down because the fatigue was building the whole time. If you just turn off the check engine light, the engine still has its issues. You just don't know about it.
Yeah.
So cordyceps mushrooms produces more ATP. It takes about 3, 4, 5 days for you to really feel the benefits. So about 60-70% of the benefits of Magic Mind you feel on day one. The rest you feel in about 4 or 5
Well, that's
days.
why this is also like a godsend to all the women out there who are in my stage of life, perimenopause, menopause. Literally, I feel like it's like all of these ingredients are perfect for women who are going through having symptoms, because it's the cortisol that gets spiked. It's the stress. It's the brain fog. It's needing the energy, but not. It's perfect for someone in my stage of life anyways. It's like the ideal drink.
How has that been with, I want to talk about that and the routine you've taken with mind, heart, and body to navigate, because you're so open about it on social media. I think it's such a great thread that is so wildly under-discussed.
And it shouldn't be like taboo or shamed or anything, because every single woman is going to go through it. Not every single woman's going to have a baby, but every single woman is going to go through menopause.
Right. It would be like not talking about puberty or something.
Exactly.
Like, oh, no, we're not going to talk about
that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
No, and then you're like, they're like, why is this happening to me? Because people aren't talking about it.
Exactly.
Within that thread, I'll finish on the choline. The choline improves blood flow to the brain. One of my favorite aspects of the entire stack is that it improves blood flow to the brain. When we drink just caffeine, it's a vasoconstrictor.
Constrictor, not a dial,
So it'll restrict blood flow to the brain and therefore restricts oxygen to the brain. So coffee, a Red Bull, a bunch of caffeine, 5-hour energy, totally fine if you're driving 5 hours or if you're 1965 doing the same manufacturing task over and over all day. When you have to switch between 17 different contexts and 17 different emails in your inbox in the course of an hour, you really want what's called lateral thinking. You really want blood flow to the brain. And choline is one of the best natural ways to get increased lateral thinking throughout the day. But it also...
And that's maybe why it helps kids who are taking...
Exactly, blood flow to the brain.
Yeah.
But and it will help you with REM sleep at night. That's why I just tell people go to AI
and look at everything it has.
Because it'll sound like there's no way it does all of these things. And I'm like, trust me, it is crazy if you can dial in your morning ritual.
And this was through all of your experimentation of like creating this list of all the things that. What about the cholera? Or is it cholera? What's the greens?
There's chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll. That's what I meant.
There's chlorophyll.
Okay, that's what I meant. So explain to me what that's helpful for.
The chlorophyll that's in the product. Honestly, the reason I really loved it, it's great for it's an anti-inflammatory agent, but we already have that with turmeric as well.
Yeah, turmeric. I know I've always needed to be taking turmeric.
But at
least you don't taste it in Magic Mind.
No, you don't taste the turmeric at all.
Because some people hate taking the turmeric because they don't like the taste.
No, and when we first made this drink, this is, and maybe I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but we had 3 different food scientists say there's no way that you're going to get that to taste good.
With those ingredients.
No. I was like, no, we are going to year after year. We just kept iterating, kept improving. Now, and our goal was make it the most effective health shot in the world, and then also make it the tastiest health shot in the world. Which no one was like, there's no way you're going to get both of those. It'll be hard to get any of those because health shots taste awful.
But it's funny because my cousin was over the other day and he's like really into strength and building and everything, and I gave him one and he was like, that's wild, because he goes, I've been trying to take all those mushrooms and he's like, they just taste like dirt, like I can't stomach them, and he's like, that's wild, that doesn't taste bad. He was like shocked.
Right. Years.
Because they're always giving me crap, like my family. Like I'm the one who's so into all the different health things, and they're like, okay, but then they try it, and I'm like, I told you.
Are you one of those?
Like I won't make them the things. I'm very honest about like this. I got this weird, I don't want to put a name on it, but like this apple cider vinegar type drink that someone sent me, and I tried it, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't stomach it. I can't. I love, I would be happy to promote things that I absolutely love, but if I don't agree with it, it doesn't taste good, I can't stand behind it,
Yeah, that'll just dissipate energy to put the hypocrisy out there. That's why it's so gratifying just to know that people really love the product, because then when they talk about it, it's like, I think for years I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of insecure, and then it was after, I don't know, 3-4 years of just people knowing that people loved it. It was like, okay, now I was kind of hesitant to put it out there, because I was like, I don't know, is this really going to have the same effects as in all the ingredients individually? Mm-hmm. Is it going to have? Are we going to be able to get it to taste right? But yeah, it was probably by year 2.5, year 3, it was like, man, I don't know how we did it. I think it was like a divine intervention, because also there was people were like, you'll never be able to get it shelf stable. It'll always need to be. Yeah, they were like,
no, but it is.
I know,
keep some in my cabinet and some in the fridge.
18 months, yeah.
That's incredible.
It's really. Yeah, so many things.
So proud of yourself. It's awesome.
No, I really just think it was like a divine logistics thing. It was like, okay, they said that was never going to happen, and it happened. But enough. I'm talking too much about Magic Mind.
I really think it's good though, because I'm sure there's people that I don't know.
People do listen to the podcast, love the shop, but they don't. Yeah, we don't talk about the science behind it.
Science behind it, and
very
I geek
often.
out on all of that. I love it.
It is.
So you want to know why you're taking, what you're taking, and what it's doing for you.
Especially when it has these benefits like choline and cognizin specifically will help improve your REM sleep at night. Mm-hmm. You're like, there's no way I could take something in the morning and improve my REM sleep, improve my sleep quality at night. And yes, this is like well-established science around choline. But enough about that stuff.
And that's one of the things that a lot of women start to have issues with when they start to go through perimenopause, because your sleep gets really disrupted. Now, I'm lucky I didn't have like nights. I'm not getting night sweats or anything, but a lot of my female clients, my sister-in-law, friends, family, like they have that, and it wakes them up in the middle of the night. And I'm not a big drinker at all, but if I have a glass of wine with friends or something, I wake up in the middle of the night in the past. So it's like I just kind of was like, I'm just going to stop drinking because I wake up every night in the middle of the night. But maybe there's also this, if I'm taking Magic Mind and I still want to go out and enjoy a drink every now and then, I can still get into my REM sleep and not feel, That's right. Yeah. The science is so like crystal clear that it helps with REM sleep. Mm-hmm. And then we have Magic Mind Sleep that we launched 6 months ago. That's all natural. That's cool. All natural. Magnesium in there?
There is. Glycinate, which is, threonate is amazing for the brain benefits, but glycinate is actually better for the sleep benefits.
Okay.
Magnesium. But it's all natural, non-habit forming. So like you can take it for no melatonin,
Great.
Which is terrible, and it's super habit forming.
It is.
But I hesitate to even mention anything more Magic Mind related, because I wanted to talk about tell me the first few signs of, and I know nothing about menopause and perimenopause. So like walk me through your own education in it.
Okay.
How you heard it, like did you have friends talk about it? When was the first time you had an experience? Like,
not enough, but I think that it's good for women to start talking about it more and more, because sometimes it's hard to pinpoint the things that you start to feel. And then finally when someone's like, oh, maybe you're starting menopause, and you're like, oh, no wonder. Like all of a sudden I'm not sleeping as well. All of a sudden I'm waking up in the middle of the night. And when I used to not ever wake up at like 3 a.m., and not be able to get back to sleep, and I'd have to do my meditations at night, or that's when I was like, I guess I'll just stop having a glass of wine ever, because I noticed maybe it was the wine. Or
when was this?
I would say a couple of years ago. And then also, like, you'll start to notice different things, like your flows, your cycles will either come on a lot heavier, or they'll be sporadic. So that's like some of the first signs. But then, interestingly, brain fog. I definitely felt that and a lot of women have a lot more stress and anxiety and mood swings. And then they talk about menobelly. Like you just start to, I think it might be with the cortisol levels as well, or maybe the decline in estrogen, a combination of things. But it's harder to not put on weight. You feel like you start gaining more weight in your belly, and things just shift. So there's so many things, and it makes women, I think, feel so frustrated and out of control. And so if you can find like little habit stacking things, like taking Magic Mind, doing some breath work, moving, there's a lot of studies behind adding that strength training on when you're getting older, eating more protein-based meals. Not like you have to like shovel down the protein like a bodybuilder, but I do think it's good to get more protein, do more strength-based exercises, get the right amount of sleep, back off all those kind of things like the caffeine, the extra coffee, even the alcohol that can mess with your sleep and just your stress levels.
Yeah, the excess caffeine, and this is also just as easy as looking it up on any AI client. Excess caffeine really messes with our hormones, and no one talks about it.
Yes.
But it completely messes. It can increase the chance of a miscarriage. Really messes with ovulation. Really messes with male sperm count. It's really it's crazy that we talk about like, and obviously can massively spike our stress hormones. We don't ever talk about that. It's like the rise in anxiety has been almost like 1-to-1 with the rise in caffeine consumption caffeine intake by the average American over the last 30 years. But every news article is like, no, it's all social media. It's all social media. No one's ever talking about, well, Starbucks cup of coffee has 350 milligrams of caffeine in it.
Why?
The average cup of coffee in 1990 at a deli or a restaurant would be 100 milligrams of caffeine, and now you have 3 times that. In fact, Starbucks' latest innovation, saw a commercial for it the other day, is triple shot espresso.
Oh Lord,
so it's like they're just like, okay, our innovation is more caffeine.
More and more caffeine. And they say the cortisol levels spike. They spike the highest in the morning.
That's right. So
and
you're
then you're adding that cup
of
of coffee on. That's why I read recently that if you are going to drink your cup of coffee, wait at least an hour and a half.
That's right.
So that your cortisol levels can go down, but you can wake up and drink Magic Mind in the morning and go about your day.
Exactly, and then you have your cup of coffee, and 90 minutes later.
Exactly, if you really feel like you need something and you want a small cup of coffee later.
What would on that the menopause and perimenopause kind of just experience, knowing everything that you know, and I know we're bumping up on time, but I think this would be really. I could talk forever. I know, same. This, especially because we barely got into like even the. I wanted to ask you more of the nuances of somatic exercise, so I'll just tell listeners, go buy Somatic Exercises for Dummies, which is your book, and it is. I think it's people will hear about somatics more and more and more of just that connection of that inner and outer when it comes to our bodies. But the on this topic of menopause, what would, knowing everything you know from being a wellness and health expert to being someone that's experienced it, what would the now that you've kind of dialed in, what's the perfect response? 5, 6 different things, perhaps top things of like, this is the ideal response that you know of to that life event that every woman will go through. And then what is the exact wrong things to do that you probably see friends or just know people do, and you're like, that diet or not exercising, like that is just asking for it to be a 18-car pileup versus, okay, this is going to be a challenge, but it's going to be, manageable versus, God, you're asking for a car wreck of.
Exactly. And if you stay on top of it and start, you start building that foundation, you're going to weather the storm a lot easier. Just like even if you're taking care of yourself before you get pregnant and then during your pregnancy, it's a lot easier after giving birth to come back to that homeostasis, to that good set point, right? So I feel like it's foundational. Like, I'm so happy I've always had this 30-year yoga practice and that I've always done some sort of strength and I've always been just naturally active. So I would say movement. I think movement is medicine. And I'm so happy that you that you went through that whole process with your body and saying, I'm going to start putting emphasis on this area of my life because it's so important. Like, your body feeds your soul, and your body and your mind are so connected. And if you start moving your body, it's just whatever you find you're going to be consistent with and that you love. So don't feel like you have to jump on a trend if you don't fall in love with it. If you try one yoga class and it's not your style, maybe try another one. If you go to a certain Pilates studio and you like that and that's your favorite form of strength training, great. Don't feel like you have to go, lift weights. But I do think some sort of strength-based workout is very important. I think mobility is important. And then I think the movement. So like daily walking. I do hikes every night with my boys after dinner. I just make it part of my lifestyle.
So would that be something like weight training, then yoga, then and perhaps Pilates and walking?
And I have like these buckets, flow, sculpt, connect, on my website. So the flow is your mobility or your flexibility, all of that kind of yoga. Your sculpt, that's your strength. You need to do some sort of resistance, right? To build muscle, maintain muscle. Women start to lose muscle as we age. And men, everyone starts to after a while. And then that connection, like how are you connecting your mind and your body? What are you doing for your spiritual state or your mental state, however you see that? Is it some breath work, some meditation, some journaling, going on those walks, connecting with yourself, I think is really important. And then when you connect with yourself, it's easier to connect with others. And that's how you start to gain insight from each other. Like talk to your friends about what's happening. What are they doing that helps? It's sleep. So movement, I think, is super important. I think taking care of your sleep is really important. So things like Magic Mind that are going to help you sleep better at night. Cutting back on the alcohol, I hate to say it, cutting back on the caffeine, not living on these instant kind of like the caffeine ups you, the
drugs,
the alcohol
drugs, right?
But in reality, they're actually not doing either one really effectively at all. And then nutrition, I think nutrition isn't one size fits all. I think everyone has what works for them, but I definitely think you just need to have well-rounded and make sure that you do get some I just think a lot of times we don't get enough good quality protein. So as long as you have some protein with the carbs, the fiber, the fruits, vegetables, that's really great. But I also talk about like the 4 W's: what, why, when, and where. What are you eating? Why are you eating? Where are you eating? And when. So like, what is it that you want, like in the morning to help you feel energized? Where is it? Is it in your kitchen? Or are you running out the door grabbing like something, you can grab a Magic Mind and something healthy, but also think about sitting down and having a meal, letting your body digest, not spiking those cortisol levels.
Breathing while you're doing it.
While you're eating, yep. I think that's where the European cultures have it down, where they actually sit with their friends and enjoy a glass of wine and then have a meal, as opposed to just like going home and drinking the wine to numb out, right? So I do find that the movement, the nutrition, the sleep, those 3 things are very important when you're going through menopause, and then finding the right kind of supplementation. So I love Magic Mind, and I also do creatine, take some creatine now. They've done a lot of great studies. And you want to make sure it's a good third-party tested. I only do 3, but I'm like 5'5" and maybe 113 pounds or something. So I think it's dependent also on how much you weigh and what. I started with 5 and it just felt like too much for me. So that's again why somatic exercise or getting to know yourself is really good, because 5 grams might be perfect for you. 5 grams might be too much. 5 grams might not be enough. Like maybe there's friends who take, but I think 5 is the sweet spot for many people.
I do 1 to 2.
You do 1 to 2, so you don't take too much.
No, because when I was doing 5 and people can look this up as well. I'm happy to hear
you said the same thing.
Yeah, when I do 5, it messes with my immune system. And with little kids, I was just getting sick constantly.
Interesting.
And I was like, why am I getting so sick? Is it just like the stage of the kids? But I was like, this isn't that different than before. And I was like, I started taking creatine. Then I looked it up, and it can be immunosuppressant.
Interesting.
So then I went
off.
off.
I'm so happy you told me this.
Then I went off, and I was like, I really miss the boost in endurance and
because you do.
I
do feel a difference.
Yes,
yes.
And so then I went back to 1 to 2 grams. It's like a spoonful. I don't even measure anymore, but it's definitely not 5 anymore. And it's on the smaller amount. It's almost like, I don't know, middle dosing. If it's not microdosing or a macro regular dose, it's like right in the middle ground. And I love it. And it has not. I haven't gotten sick in like 4 or 5 months, so it has not messed with my immune system.
So interesting? So maybe it's not even weight related or height related, but it's more
just something. I think it's a little bit really does. Yeah. I noticed the impact in my endurance through different classes, and I'll also add that try out different modalities, but also try them for like 3 weeks.
Yes.
Because your first Pilates class will be embarrassing, and that's okay.
Don't give up on it.
Yeah, don't get my first yoga class, so embarrassing. But but like I said, I love kind of, I don't know, it's like built-in humility of like, no, be a beginner at things every few years. When I started surfing, I was like,
I'm so impressed that you're surfing. That's amazing.
And I heard someone on a podcast say, for a few years, I want to be a beginner at something to really just knock down my ego.
Yes.
And then... yeah, I found all these different things. I probably listened to that 5 years ago now.
And I liked what you said, too, even about Magic Mind or with the creatine or something like that. you can't expect an immediate, you can't take one packet of creatine and then be like, oh, it's like,
Right.
no, you have to give yourself that time and do the experimentation. I noticed for a month I was taking 5 grams and I was like, ooh, I don't quite feel right or great. Like I don't feel, I did feel like people were like, oh, were you retaining water or this or that? And it wasn't so much of that. It just didn't, I just knew it wasn't right. And then I went to 3 and I was like, I feel great. And this seems like the right amount for me to take every day.
Yeah.
And I do it with electrolytes. So it's that, and then the Magic Mind in the morning,
Right in the morning.
and yeah.
Yeah, it is. So everyone.
And I
else
take
is built
magnesium at
differently.
night. So I'm glad that you've
awesome.
created a.
You're gonna love. You're gonna
nighttime-
love Magic Mind Sleep. It's
Can't
like
wait.
a
That's awesome.
pun intended sleeper hit that I think we've developed. But I'll give you a bunch, and everybody listening, there should be. We'll add a promo code in the show notes for
good.
Magic Mind, obviously, but also Magic Mind Sleep, and I'll add in another one for gummies since we touched on it.
Oh yes, I want to get this for my boys.
You'll love it.
Or they'll be good on the go if you're traveling and you can't bring your
That's right.
Magic Mind with you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but
Although
we
today I
did. Yeah.
thought, in the
2
airplane,
ounces,
you
exactly.
can
You can.
actually take it on the
You
flight.
can. We have.
Which is
pro
awesome.
surfer Co. Rothman travels with like
So
20,
cool.
30 bottles at a
I'm gonna
time.
start doing that.
Yeah, you can travel with them easily.
That's awesome.
Kristen, this has been
Oh,
so much fun.
nice.
Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much
you.
for taking your time. Super busy schedule to chat with us. Thank you so much for the generosity of the insight that you shared, and even more the generosity of the insights that you share every day. Where can people find? What are your favorite places for people to find more about you online? Instagram?
Instagram's one, just my name, Kristin McGee. Substack, I have a Substack
That's right, yeah.
article that I write on Kristin McGee, and then my website's just kristinmcgee.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you, James.